Hello everyone, and I'd like to welcome you all to episode 2 of our McGill and Partners video series, Open Book, where we invite industry and market leaders to discuss current trends and debate on topics and events affecting both the insurance market and more broadly. This week, I'm absolutely honoured and delighted to welcome Hank Greenberg, who is a man that really needs absolutely no introduction. Hank is the chairman of Star Companies. Prior to his position at Star, he was the chairman and CEO of AIG, a former Star subsidiary which became the first fully licensed foreign insurance company in China. Under his nearly 40 years of leadership, AIG grew from an initial market value of $300 million to a $180 billion firm, becoming the largest insurance company in the world. Among Hank's numerous awards and appointments, Hank serves as vice chairman of the National Committee on the United States-China Relations, honorary vice chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, and as a member of the board of the US-China Business Council. In 1990, he was appointed by Zhu Rongji as Shanghai's first chairman of the International Business Leaders Advisory Council. Hank has been named an honorary citizen of Shanghai and was appointed as a senior economic advisor to the Beijing municipal government. He has also been and still is a trusted advisor to a number of US presidents and leaders. Hank is considered one of the greatest business leaders in the world, and it just so happens that we're incredibly fortunate that he also works in the insurance industry. So it's a great honor for me to compare notes with my good friend Hank, and I'd like to start off, before going on the journey through his life and career, by seeing how Hank is faring in this extraordinary lockdown period, working remotely and not traveling, Hank. It's a bit unusual for you, isn't it?
It's difficult not to travel when you're a global company as we are, and I miss it very much. I'm in touch with our people at least once a week, all of them, the U.S. first, and then the international people. And I'm happy to say they're all in good shape. Working from home has become a kind of a habit now for most companies, and they're finding things that they didn't know before, and I'm not sure they'll go back the way it was completely when this is over. There are many jobs that can be done from home, given technology that exists today, and the loyalty of many people. You can cut down the space you're occupying in large, expensive buildings. And that's going to be reflected very shortly, I believe, in the industry. So there's something good to come out of that. As far as when we're going to go back to our offices, as you've seen currently, the states that began to loosen up very quickly are paying a price for it. It's a very difficult price. You affect the lives of people. I'm not going to do that. I am not going to jeopardize the life and health of our employees by insisting that they go back to work in the office. We're not going to do that. We'll only do it when it's safe, and then many people can work effectively from home going forward, and we'll pursue that. and we'll pursue that. We want business getters and underwriters who understand business to be where we can talk to them. And they've got to be out in the field, many of them, doing what we do normally, work with brokers and try and get as much business as we can. And I'm convinced we'll do that quite well.
Right.
So,
and how are you finding technology yourself?
pretty good.
Excellent.
I'm enjoying it.
Well, I do miss comparing notes with you in person, but it's great to have you and talk remotely on this open book series. So, and again, thank you for the time. Going back through your extraordinary life, Hank, it's difficult to know what to sort of pick up from everything you've done and achieved. But right at the start, it's fair to say you came from pretty humble, modest beginnings, didn't you? I mean, farming upstate New York. And can you take us through that journey? Because it went from there into enlisting and actually fighting in the war. Actually, I think you were underage, and it was just after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I grew up in a little town called Swan Lake. My father died when I was very young. I think I was about 5 years old. My mother became a manicurist. We lived with my grandparents after that. My mother took us to Swan Lake in the summer as a resort. We spent the summer there. And she married, ultimately, a gentleman who lived there and had a very big farm. And so I grew up there. I grew up on a farm, which was hard work, but very pleasant work. I got to know all about farming, and I used to have a trap line, and I learned how to trap. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to visit the traps, and I did quite well. I caught, trapped many different small animals and sold their skins. So it was a good life. I played football in high school, and that's when the war broke out, and you couldn't travel. They were saving gasoline, which was a shortage of, and so you couldn't travel to other high schools to play football. So the season ended, and I got bored, and I lied my age, hitchhiked to Newburgh, New York, where there was an enlistment office. Went in and enlisted. The guy said, because you look very young, you need your mother's signature. So I get it. I went outside and signed her name. And I was in the military. I trained out in the Midwest. And I was sent to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, to school for a while. And then I went to England. I was there a year before the invasion. And I was training others besides having been trained myself. I spent a year doing that. I promoted very quickly. I became a sergeant when I was about 18 and a half years old. And moved up in rank throughout the war. I was offered a regular Army commission, but I'd have to leave the platoon that I was leading for the whole war. I didn't want to do that. So I stayed where I was. But When the war ended in Europe, we had linked up with the Russians in Linz, Austria, came back to Germany, and I was waiting for orders to come back home. I was offered an appointment to West Point if I wanted to stay in the military. I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. I said, I can't decide that right now. And so I didn't take that. I came back. I stayed in the reserves. I was commissioned in the reserves. I needed the money when I was going to school, which I did. I finished high school, college, and law school. And then the Korean War broke out. And I was recalled. I was a company commander in Korea. That's different. I would tell you that's a different experience. You're responsible for other people's lives. And I had a policy. I wouldn't ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do, ever. And I went through the war that way. I was lucky to come out alive. It was a very difficult war. I was glad to come out alive. Came back and to get a job. I went to visit some of the guys I went to law school with. They were all struggling. Well, I left their office. As you mentioned, I went down the street, saw the Continental Casualty building, went in. The HR guy was a real jerk. He was a jerk. So I went down to the lobby to see who was running the office. Bob Rao Reed. I busted into his office and I said to him, "You got an asshole for an HR guy." He thought I was going to hit him. I said, "Sit down." I did. We talked for about an hour. I left with the job. What it was going to be, I had no idea. And I became, in a couple of years, the youngest assistant vice president. They moved me to Chicago. And I moved up the ranks very quickly. I was a vice president at a very young age in that company. And that's how I started. And,
so, Hank, like many, you actually got into the insurance industry, actually, in a way, by mistake or by a fluke. You were walking down William Street in Lower Manhattan, New York in 1952, and then you happened to walk into Continental Casualty's office. And previously you were a law student.
I finished law school. I was admitted to the bar, and but getting a job in a law firm in New York was very difficult. There are many lawyers that came back from World War II, and they flooded the market.
Yeah. Interesting. So you went to Chicago with Continental Casualty. You were very successful there, as you were just describing. And how did you then go from Continental Casualty to CV Star that then went from there into AIG? I'm sure that people watching this be fascinated by how your career developed from there.
The president of Continental Casualty knew Star, and he was traveling to Asia on a vacation, and he ran into Star. Star, of course, had a business in Asia. He had what was called the AIU, which was essentially a general agency representing American companies in Asia. And he had learned how to ski at an advanced age. Star did. And he went to a ski shop in Tokyo, where skis were being made by hand by the owner. And he broke one of the skis when he was testing its flexibility. He was very upset. So he started to talk to the owner. And the owner had a son who was on the Japanese ski team. And they were trying to find time to practice, but there was no snow that time of the year in Japan. So Starr volunteered to send the whole team to Switzerland to practice, which he did. He paid the whole team in Switzerland. Then he wanted to teach the kid something about the insurance business. And so the president who was traveling there got in touch with me. And I said, sure, you can send him and we'll do what we can to train him. And he spent about 6 months with me in Chicago. And Starr came to visit him a couple of times. And it was very clear he was interested in hiring me. I wasn't looking for a job. I was doing quite well. But things changed in Continental Casualty at a time that I became vulnerable then. And so I did join Starr. And my first job was to build an A&H department. And we did it very successfully. It became the largest international A&H business in the industry in a very short time. He owned a company in the United States called the American Home, which was an utter failure. As all small property casualty companies were, their expense ratio was much too high. The automobile business was terrible. They were one of many of the same. And he urged me to take the job of running it. He wasn't doing me a favor at the time. I said I would do it on condition that I do what I have to do. I don't want any second guessing. He said, okay, you have the authority to do it. I reinsured out the entire business in the Continental Insurance Company. Got rid of all the agents and started business with brokers only. Large commercial risk. I hired a half a dozen guys from London who understood that business. We were off and going. So we did that. Did very well. We bought then the New Hampshire Insurance Company, which is part of the AIU family. That was a good company. And I started several others, and we built what became known as AIG. I left the CV Starr & Company out of AIG. I kept it on its own, not doing anything. And we built AIG, as you pointed out, the largest insurance company in history. That record has never been beaten by anybody.
And you became CEO of AIG in, I think, the late 60s, was it not?
Yeah.
And then you built it from there, which was truly extraordinary. And that's where I had the privilege of doing lots of deals with you and your colleagues. When you look back and reflect on your career in the insurance industry and leadership and the importance of talent, what advice do you have for my colleagues who are building a business brand new with me, looking to the future with a lot of excitement and confidence?
There's a couple of things that were different then that very hard to replace. As you know, I fought in the Korean War. Came back when I started to work for Star. There were 3 other officers who had fought in the war. And each of them from World War II had a different area of the business for Star. They understood when you gave an order, they had to be carried out. There was no second guessing or arguing. They saluted and carried it out. And so I had the fortune of having about 3 or 4 at the time senior guys in the company who had been in the military service and knew what carrying out orders meant. And they did a great job. And we worked together to build the biggest company in our industry and history. I'm very proud of what they did.
I mean, the interesting thing as well, Hank, when you were building AIG with the world-class talent you had an uncanny knack, I remember, of having the strategic vision for the firm to be a truly international, world-class global firm. But you could also get into the detail. And I remember years and years ago when I was at Jardine Lloyd Thompson, I was traveling on business in actually San Francisco at the time. And this was when AIG was nearly $180 billion market cap. And you called me up to chase me down on a Russian D&O premium that we had outstanding for $500,000. And you called me personally on the phone to make sure we paid it, which we did. We'd been a little remiss in making the payment. But I always reflected on how extraordinary it was that you could have that balance between being a leader of a very large business, but actually having that personal touch where you could get right into the detail if you needed to.
I do it today.
Yeah. So, when we talk about defining moments in history, and, this period is obviously one of them, and you talked about the Second World War, and you talked about the Korean War. The Second World War, I think you landed on Omaha Beach, and you actually went through and fought across Europe under General Patton at the time with all the armies there going through. But I remember, I think it was 4 years ago now, you were in London getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I was privileged to be your guest at the dinner and the event. And I remember a very senior figure from a major European insurance company who'd never met you before, but came and actually introduced himself to you, and the 3 of us were having a conversation. And he came up to thank you for liberating, I think it was the Dachau concentration camp. And you were one of the first American soldiers into that camp, if I'm not mistaken. And I have to say, it was an incredibly touching moment to hear, one industry figure talking to another iconic industry figure, and having that perspective and that situation to, thank you for liberating actually his father.
It was a moving experience for me. I didn't think that people do what they did to other humans. And I tell you, even today, it's hard to believe what went on. The first person I met, Doc, I was a little man. He probably was no more than 5 foot tall. And he could barely walk. He put his arms around me and asked me if I was He asked me in Hebrew, I don't speak Hebrew, if I was Jewish. And I said yes. He started to cry, wouldn't let me go. Made me cry, actually. It was a very touching moment.
Amazing. I mean, another defining moment was 9/11, and actually, I had a bit of a near miss because I was actually in New York that weekend, and I flew out on the 10th of September, Monday the 10th of September, to San Francisco on the United flight that went down on the 11th of September, and it was a flight from Newark to San Francisco. And I was going on the 11th of September because my daughter's birthday was on the 11th of September, and I was going to see her, and she was living out there. But you had an even nearer miss, I think, on actually the 11th of September, if I remember correctly.
That's right. I was supposed to speak at the top floor. They had a restaurant.
In the World Trade Center?
Yeah.
Windows of the World?
Yeah, and but they had to move it uptown because it was overcrowded. They had more people wanted to come than they could hold. They moved it uptown. If I hadn't moved it, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And you sort of harnessed the insurance industry, I remember, to actually get much needed insurance coverage. AIG was sort of leading the charge on that after 9/11, you know, with the airline industry. So, you know, that was, again, an extraordinary time. And again, with COVID-19, we're living in an extraordinary time, but you're looking really healthy and safe, I have to say, and looking very well.
I'm working hard. I feel pretty good. I try to get enough exercise. I'll keep doing this as long as I can.
Well, I always used to enjoy, obviously, our lunches in the CV Star office in Park Avenue, but we sometimes would go to the Four Seasons restaurant, and you'd be having the chopped chicken salad, I think, and you'd be lecturing me on making sure I keep fit, giving me all the coaching, and not only coaching on keeping fit, but what I eat. So it's always been well received, your advice on how to stay well and healthy.
Get enough exercise, my friend, and keep working. You're good at what you do, and you should keep doing it. I know you'll be successful, and I look forward for us to working together. And I'm glad to see you looking well right now.
Thank you. Can I just move on to China and your extraordinary sort of leadership on the world stage with China, which I think goes back to the mid 70s. Did that come through your connections and leadership with CV Star? Because obviously CV Star was a very international business entrepreneur. He founded the firm in 1919. He was based out of, was it Beijing or Hong Kong?
No, Shanghai.
Shanghai. And was that where you had your sort of passion for China, or were there other driving forces to that?
When I joined Star, he was living in New York, living where I am right now. We're at Moore Farm, where I am right now, which is where Star's U.S. home was. And he's buried not far from you, where you and I are talking, actually. Star built a non-life business in Asia, starting in China. And then, of course, the war broke out, World War II, and he had to leave. He came back after the war and started again, back in Shanghai. He had an office on the Bund, which is a very famous street in Shanghai. And then, of course, they had their own revolution, and the communists won. All the foreigners left. He left at the time. They all moved, many of them moved to Taiwan. And we had an office in Taiwan. And Stalin never went back to China. He didn't believe that the communists who ruled the country would be amenable to the work of capitalists, if you want to call it that. When I succeeded Starr, I traveled all through Asia because we had offices, the AIU, in almost every country. When we didn't, I started new offices. We were doing quite, but I always stopped in China. Here's a country with billions and literally billions of people who had closed itself off to the rest of the world, and someday would have to be part of the rest of the world. I didn't discuss it with anybody, but I always stopped in China when I was traveling in Asia. Got to meet, there was one insurance company at that time, the PICC, People's Insurance Company. They had no knowledge of insurance. Even though some of the people that worked for Star were working in the PICC. I started working with them, helping them. They were trying to export some things. We provided coverage, either directly or reinsured the PICC. I gradually met the leadership. And I met the mayor of Shanghai, and we became more than acquaintances. We were friends. A man called Zhu Rongji, who had been the mayor of Shanghai, became the premier of China. We were quite good friends. We are today. He's alive, and he's retired, but he looks after Tsinghua University. It's the biggest and the best university in China. I'm on their board. I've been there for many years. So I made a lot of friends in China over the years. And gradually we became to do more business. We got the market open. We got the first life insurance license that was granted. Took many years to get that. And so we've been there for a long time. We have a very good non-life business going. I'm going to start a life company very shortly in China. We're going to do it differently. What China has developed amazingly. It's grown enormously, and more online business is done than any other country. So if you're selling insurance, you can do it online. You don't have brokers or agents for that class of business. They can work with you, but so we're starting a new operation very shortly. I wish I could go to China right now, but I can't because of the illness. I have a lot of friends in China, and it's a two-way street. I've seen enormous change in China. Now, the problem going forward, obviously, is China's aspirations politically is to control a lot more than they currently do. They would like Taiwan back. They would like Hong Kong not to resist Beijing. And they've been acting very aggressive with that. That's an issue we're going to have to deal with. So it's not without problems. Many things are not work to try and make it work. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I just don't know.
Well, you've been an extraordinary intermediary, I think, for every president, American president since Nixon, in connecting with China. And I'm sure that your vast wealth of experience and connections are going to be really important as we navigate through the future of COVID-19, come out the other end and make sure that, things settle down as best they can. There's a lot of stress and tension and sensitivity in the world right now.
You're absolutely right. China's now the second largest economy in the world. And it's come on very quickly when you think about it. And President Xi is determined to expand China into areas that had influence 150 years ago. And so we'll see how that works out,
Yeah.
I'm very much involved in it.
I'm sure you are. I'm delighted to hear that as well. Looking at how you're building CV Star with extraordinary talent, some of the great colleagues that in the industry work in CV Star, you're building a specialist insurance and reinsurance business. And, we're on a parallel path as McGill and Partners. I've recruited so far 230 colleagues. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We're doing some great business between ourselves and yourselves. We're very new. We're only, to all intents and purposes, not even 12 months old in many respects. And, you've been a great supporter of ours and a great friend. And I'll never forget when I was thinking about setting this up, the counsel you gave me and advice, and also the fact that you were prepared to support this venture financially meant a huge amount, which I'll never forget. But what advice would you give us in thinking about the sort of future, and how do you think about Star and the future of Star? Because with the market the way it is, the insurance market and the conditions, and yes, there's lots of challenges, but there seems to be a huge amount of opportunity as well. And what advice would you give us as a new business, new startup on the block?
Well, you're a new startup, but you're not new in the insurance business. You've learned a lot over the years, and I think you've learned well. Work with companies that believe in underwriting, because that's the basic thing that you're selling and the thing that we do. If we fail to make an underwriting profit for any period of time, we'll soon be out of business. You have to make a profit in the business that you're in. If you don't do that, then you're going to lose. Not many companies are disciplined in achieving an underwriting profit. They're more interested in getting the volume than they are the bottom line. And that doesn't last long, as you know, if you look at the history. And so we're a disciplined organization. And I think that I've always found you to be disciplined. You don't want to write business with a company that's going to lose money. It doesn't make any sense. You won't have that renewal for long, so you're wasting your time. You want to build relationships and do it the right way. If a customer that you do business with is not interested in an insurer making money, stay away from them. We're entitled to make a reasonable profit. Otherwise, we're not in business. And so I know you believe that, and that's why we've become friends. We'll stick with you. I know you'll stick with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. And on back to Star, the one final comment or question I'd like to ask you is, it's about the Star Foundation. That is an extraordinary success story. You know, when you if I understand it correctly, when you talk about the money that was put into the Star Foundation maybe a long time ago of I think like $15 million, and it's translated into billions of dollars today, and it's really driving, you know, some incredible medical research projects and educations and stuff. How did that all evolve? And you've been absolutely front and center around and passionate about the Star Foundation, but that's in its own right an extraordinary success story.
Strange you asked that. I'm going to have a meeting at the Star Foundation in about an hour, actually. When Star died, before he died, he started a little foundation. He had no family. His company was a family. And they had $15 million in it. And $15 million at the time was not a small sum of money. Anyway, I became the head of the foundation after Star passed on. Gordon Tweedy preceded me, but he was not an insurance executive. He gave Star some legal advice from time to time. Anyway, I became the head of the foundation. It had a very minimal $15 million. You couldn't do much. It's worth billions of dollars today. We built it by making contributions out of our business since we were privately held, and by investing wisely. And it has a net worth of billions of dollars today. We made investments in, as you pointed out, in medical research. I chaired New York Hospital, which now is one of the largest in the country, if not number 2 or 3. And I did that when it was a tiny hospital. I built a building called the Star Building. We paid for it. I hired top flight physicians. And New York Hospital today is one of the best in the world. Cornell University has a campus in New York. They have a medical school. This year, and I've been connected with them for years, been on their board for a long time, put them together with New York Hospital. They now have an alliance. The medical school is one of the top in the country. And one of the things I found out When students graduate from medical school, they have a debt of about $100,000. So they're spending the first number of years to try and pay their debt off. So we put a plan in from the Star Foundation this year to pay the tuition for medical school for all the students at Cornell. If we weren't the first or the second school, second foundation to do that. And, the students love us, obviously, and they can spend more time studying. They'll be better doctors when they come out. They don't have debt overhanging them. I'm glad we're able to do it.
That's fantastic. Well, Hank, you've been incredibly generous with your time today. I really appreciate comparing notes with you. I just wanted to thank you for your leadership, not only in the insurance industry, but on the world stage. I'd like to thank you for your mentorship throughout my entire career. And most of all, I'd like to thank you for my friendship with you. It's been a great journey together with you, and we've got lots to do going forward.
Yes, we do. I agree with everything you've said. I consider you a very close friend, a great ally, and I learn a lot from you when I see you. So thank you for taking the time also.
Great. Thanks again, Hank, and we'll be in touch. All the best.
I look forward to it.